today?
All right. This is the Drupal usability meeting for February 19th, 2019. It's 19 to 19 something, yeah. And we have a bunch of media and layout stuff to review. Since the media people arrive first, let's start with the media one and then maybe jump over to layouts and then back to media. What about that?
Well, media should just take the whole hour.
No.
Yeah, I know that would be
We'll try to keep it short.
Yeah. So Sean has the demo of the things that sort of need UX approval and sign off. So Sean, why don't you share screen, take it away?
Yes. So last week we talked about what should happen after you add things to the media library. And we came to the conclusion that once you added new files, you should return to the media library to show that the items are actually added for everyone to the library. And what we also wanted to do in this step where you added the media is give you an option to directly insert it into the widget like it was before, because for experienced authors, having to go back to the library every time you add a file is probably, a little bit too much. So I created a proof of concept for this. And just to show you, once you add media and you select some files and start adding new ones, you now get a screen where the new files are shown with the form elements that are required, and all the things you selected before are shown below it, where you can still select or deselect some. And I think the things we need to talk about most is how the presentation of the selected files is, what we should do about the count, and just some first opinions would be nice, I think. Oh yeah, and also the text for the buttons, but some first feedback, anyone?
It's worth mentioning also that Christina was supposed to provide us a design for this, and she commented today to say that she thinks this looks pretty good. Maybe the size is an issue, but I think she said that this was pretty much what she would have in mind for a area displaying things that you've already selected.
Yeah. So first, to comment on some comments on how this is presented.
If no one says anything, for the record, we're just going to say has UX sign off and RTV see it.
Can you remind us what the issue number is? And maybe paste it into the chat.
Yeah, sure. The issue number is 3023797, and I'll post the link in the chat.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Hey, Angie, I bet you have opinions on this.
Hi, I literally just got here, so my opinion is plaid. What are we talking
about?
42.
Yeah, so I can show it again real quick. So we open the media library and you select some files.
Yep.
And upload some as well. And previously, it wouldn't show you what you've already selected. It wouldn't even remember. And
that is cool.
Yeah, and when you clicked save, you went back to the media library, and we now added an extra button to save and insert directly.
That's great.
Yes. So
that's great. Wow. It's like we talked about it 1 week ago, and 1 week later, it's done. That's awesome.
Yeah, so
That is the magic of having Sean on your team.
so you can
have little delete buttons there. Shit, man, that looks great.
yeah, so now you can directly insert as well. So
Yeah, we're soliciting opinions and feedback on this. So far, no one seems to have any. But if all we've got is that's fucking awesome, then we'll just charge ahead with it.
That's my official opinion. It's fucking awesome.
Can
I guess like if I have to nitpick anything, right now, like you don't move at all. The things you just selected are technically taking up less screen real estate than the things that you selected before, and that's a little weird because it's like, hey, I already like. So in other words, the bottom part of the screen has the larger visual weight. So if there was a way to make that smaller or less pronounced somehow, that might be useful. But like apart from that, I don't really have anything.
But you only see that after you scroll, right? The new stuff shows at
No,
top.
I don't know. It came up too fast. I thought it was there right
yeah,
away.
we could make this smaller, I guess.
No, someone's here who actually has a design background. We should ask her.
So if you make it smaller, there's less room for the
Less room for that. Yeah, that's probably not
For
good.
the-
And then you gotta keep track
the
of two
file
different
names.
styles, and that's just annoying. So yeah.
Yeah, so if you only see the first 10 characters of your file name, I'm not sure how helpful that is.
Christina, you gotta see this. Okay, I'm sorry. You already demoed it twice. Can you demo it one more time?
I think she saw the screen.
Yeah.
Okay, I'm sorry. Yeah.
Christina commented today in the issue, I think, saying, if I recall correctly, she commented to say this was pretty good.
Yeah.
Can you show us what happens when you click Save and Select?
So in click Save and Select, oh, yeah, of course.
Yells at you.
Then you go back and the new one is selected, and all things you selected previously are also still selected.
And we're sorting by newest first, so the new one will always be first, but the other selected ones might be further down.
Yeah, they could technically be on another page.
Right, another vertical tab, right?
Another vertical tab, or if you have a pager in this view, that could also be, or yeah.
Another page of the same view.
Exactly, so it could be anywhere in your library. But you go back to the screen where you added the file. So basically you will, I'm not really sure if you will always see the exact screen that you came from, because if you filtered by name, for example, so if I filter by this, I should get less files, maybe 87 or something, I'm not sure. So if I select this one, and I add a new one, and I click Save and Select, now I have this one selected and those.
God, it even grays out the one.
Yeah, it's done that since forever.
I love it.
Of course, if you're not sorting by newest first, the new ones won't show up, but that's the default. So
yeah,
so currently you go back
to make the new ones not show up.
Well, we are not remembering the filters and sorts you applied, but we could do that if needed.
We can maybe file that as a follow-up. I honestly feel like that might be more confusing than not. Like if you're not getting a fresh slate each time, and it's like, why am I only seeing two? Oh, okay, that's why. You know what I mean? Like I think it's less confusing to see the full range of everything.
It's also worth mentioning, this has been mentioned in this meeting before, but that 5 of 5 items selected, I think we have a issue open, as a should have in our roadmap, to turn that into a link where if you click it, you can just see in a grid all the things you've selected across all pages and filters. So that's not in this issue, but I think there's a dedicated issue for that.
Do we need that? Isn't that what you're currently doing? Or is that only going to show me images that I've selected? Like it will not show me...
That will, if we fix that later. So if you click here on this text, it will refresh like the whole content. It will remove the vertical tabs, and it just shows you all the things you added across all tabs.
I'm sorry, I understand that.
Okay.
I mean, when you click Add File,
yeah,
it's not going to let you because you have 5. But yeah, there you go. When you add a new file, like that, and then it's showing you stuff down below. Is that showing you all the stuff you've uploaded, or only the images you've uploaded? Or
No, everything.
Everything, yeah. So I don't think we even need that if we've got this.
So let me remove this one. So let's say we select baby shark.
No.
I had to do it.
No. Okay.
And then the baby shark is
Great.
in there as well.
And then I never want to see that fucking thing again. So can you delete it?
Yeah. So let's not select that.
Oh yeah, let's see what it does.
Sean, it's in my head now.
Okay. So now I go to save and select, and
Nope.
of course, crap. Then it's also removed from the selection.
Yeah, I got it. Sweet. Oh man, that's so great.
Yeah.
So and that's actually pretty. If you guys think this looks good, then this is pretty close to being able to. We're close to RTV seeing that.
I won't shut up and stop talking. And Christina, do you have thoughts here, or anyone else? But Christina, you were the one who was gonna, do some design thinking, right?
Well, when I was trying it today, I mean, it was already like that. So it's great that you get to that point. It's a really good solution. My only suggestion here was to have smaller thumbs on the other screen when you are actually uploading something.
Yeah, I actually made them smaller now already, just in the browser. So if I would refresh this, this is the normal size. Okay. So they used to be bigger, and I just made them a little bit smaller. So,
but in general, instead of only there.
Yeah, because I did it in the browser in the generic styles. But we could make it that that they're only a little bit smaller on the second page. Like they're now 180 pixels wide, and we could make it like 120. So you would lose like 8 or 10 characters from the file name, but you would still see a significant part. Maybe that helps already. Just make it a little bit smaller, just not too much. I think we can.
Yeah, the problem here is we do that too small. Is that we lose the title? Yeah.
Yeah. So I could propose like making it, I don't know, maybe 1/3 smaller, but only for the second step. So not in this screen, but only in this screen. So make them like 2/3 of what it is right now.
Yeah, I would say that fits like 6 items here.
Yeah, currently it should be 4, but let's say we go to 120. So it would be, yeah, I should fix the height too, but just to give you an impression. You would still see a bit of the file name.
Yeah, maybe that's a bit too much. I'm not really sure, but my concern is that you really lose a lot of,
Yeah. So this would go from 180 to 150, like this. Maybe this is, yeah, sorry.
How much is, what's the width right now?
The normal size is 180 pixels, and I now reduced it to 150.
150. I don't know. Maybe it's not the moment, the plate right now to go pixel.
No,
up and pixel down. But I would say, I don't know, 110 or 20 or something like that.
I could give you a quick impression of what that would look like.
Anyone else, feel free to.
This is 120.
I think it's much better now.
Okay, so I will do that.
Yeah. What other people think about that?
I like it.
I like it too. Thumbs up.
Ship it.
Great. Okay, so then there are 2 other things I would like your opinion on, and One is the selected items, because since you didn't finish all the required fields yet, the new items are at this moment not counted as selected items.
What?
Yeah, so we have 2 items selected and we have 1 uploaded. So you have 3 items here right now. But it shows 2 of 5 items selected, since this media item still needs an alternative text and it's not finished yet. So it's technically not yet selected. But I'm not really sure if that's obvious and clear or not.
I think it's weird. I mean, you're seeing 3 things, and instead of that, it says 2. Sorry, go ahead, Thomas.
I was just going to say that I wouldn't count the item that's being added as selected yet unless it also included a checkbox, because I would interpret the selected as the blue checkbox. So if for some reason you could add the blue checkbox, that would give people the choice of having it added to the library but not being added to the node. But the item selected right now is valid. It's only 2 of 5 that have been selected, the way it looks.
Yeah, maybe, yeah. I don't know, it's strange.
I just thought of something. You have this required field for the alt text. What happens if you close the modal at this point?
Then everything you did in the modal is disregarded, I guess. So nothing happens. That rows is now not added to your media library. Wait, let me just go back to the normal size again. So that item I just uploaded is now not a media item yet, since you didn't finish and save it. The close button basically works as like a cancel.
Okay.
Yeah, what Thomas said, it makes a lot of sense. But the problem is that you still have 3 things there. And the moment that you're so when you click insert, select, well, save and insert, you're saving, but it says 3 of 5.
Yeah, so if you do this and save and insert, you have 2 of 5 items selected, but you insert 3 items. So yeah, that could be a bit weird.
Could you say 2 of 5 items selected and X number added, so that it became visible in some way, that you'd have 2 counts?
Yes, but I already have like some concerns about how this will fit in a responsive.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Also, it's too much information.
Yeah, so if I would, I don't know, let me pull this to the side.
If you drop the term selected and you say 3 of 5 items, you aren't differentiating, and the total number of items that someone is working with would be 3 of 5, or actually 3 of 6, because if you selected 2 of 5 from the library and you add 1, it's actually 3 of 6, correct?
The of 5 items, that's the cardinality of the field.
Okay, got it. Sorry.
So yeah.
This feels to me like the follow-up issue, because you might have a line of text saying 1 new item, and that might go directly above this message, or it might go above the horizontal line in the same section as the new items. And I think that's too much to decide right now.
Okay.
So probably.
Yeah, sorry.
Yeah, I was going to say, we are talking here, we are saying here how many items are selected. Maybe we shouldn't be talking about selected. Maybe we should be talking about how many items we are going to add or insert. I have no idea how to say that in English. Not even in Catalan.
3 of 5 items to be inserted or something?
Yeah.
Really awkward.
Makes more sense. Yeah, something like that. Makes more sense.
Well, we could try to just include the new items in the count already. Since I think I was kind of leaning towards that, since if you click save and select, you have 3 items selected. And if you click save and insert, you have 3 items that are inserted. So you could argue that the thing you uploaded, even though it's not saved yet, it's at this moment kind of selected.
Yeah, I would say that. I would understand that. Anyway, it can be art. So if someone could say, no, I don't understand that way. So
maybe that's more intuitive than the technical explanation that it's technically not selected, but it's added, so it's like halfway there being selected. I'm not sure.
Maybe we could say 3 items will be added or will be inserted, or I don't know.
Okay, let's park this one for now. Should I try to include the new item in the count yet, or should we postpone that to a follow-up?
I think that's fine. At least for now, it's not dramatic, but it's a good change in the future, my point of view.
Okay, so postponing it would be fine.
I think it can be postponed.
Okay, let's just do that to not get too much hung up on this particular issue. Then the last thing I would like feedback on for this patch is the text of the buttons. So now it has save and select and save and insert. And on the previous screen, it said insert selected. And previously it was select media, and I changed it to insert selected because I wanted to have consistent terminology of inserting versus selecting. So when you are, what happened? I'm not really sure. Let me try. I killed it. Okay, so here you can say save and select. So that means selecting something is a thing and inserting something is a thing. Any opinions on that?
I mean, personally, I like it the way it is. I think it makes just a lot of sense to me. Like I like that select and insert are 2 separate things. Yeah, I'm not sure.
I agree that they once you are used, you know which item, what means each of them, what's a clear the difference. But if you're not used to that, at least for me as not a native English speaker, for me it's almost the same. Select, insert. It's not because they are close words. It's just that save and something super similar. I would expect, for example, save and select more items. I don't know, the feeling is that it's really close. And what's selecting more? It's that I already selected enough, or I can select, maybe selecting it's enough to save, and I don't know. I mean, it's super clear for us because we know what is going on here. But maybe for people that is not used to Drupal terminology, and that's actually one of the main feedbacks people give to Drupal usually, is that the jargon, or I don't know how they say it in English, the words that we are used in Drupal, other people don't understand them that quickly. Jargon, thanks.
I think that if I didn't know from our discussions specifically what the intention of these buttons were, I wouldn't understand the difference between them. And I would actually have to repeatedly over time, if I didn't do it frequently, I'd have to press one, see what it did versus pressing the other and seeing what it did. And since both are save actions, it seems a little confusing. I don't want to be pedantic. It seems it isn't very intuitive, unfortunately, for me.
On the other hand, if you click the wrong one, it's not a disaster. You don't lose any data. If you click Save and Select the default, then you're back at the media library, and one more click and you'll actually add them to your node. If you click Save and Insert, then you've got the field there and you have the little X marks, so you can remove some if you wanted to, or you can add more, I think. Right? If you click Save and Insert, then you just click the Add Media button again, and you can insert more.
Exactly. And also the fact that you insert selected here should, at least, it is consistent about you are inserting stuff from the library into your article. That maybe helps. I'm not sure. Terminology is not my strongest part.
What about insert, save and insert more? Well, it's too long. More items. It's too
What
long.
does CCK, or I keep calling it CCK, what does the field UI do for this pattern? Because it has the same pattern. I think it's save and add another or something like that, and the other one is just save. I can't remember.
So,
Yeah, but until you have the media library, you never have this thing where you're selecting a bunch of things and also possibly adding some new ones. I don't think you'll find really the same pattern in the field UI.
No, it's not the same pattern, but we have a precedent for save and add another thing versus don't do that. Can we just quickly flit over there and see what it's called?
So where should that be? We're adding fields?
Content types, manage fields. Yeah, I think so. It's been a while since I've been in this dark regions of the thing.
Should it be here?
Where was it? No, I think it's actually creating a content type. So if you go to content types, yeah, add a content type, I think. No, maybe we don't have a flow here anymore.
Also,
Like
not
we should
sure.
have a save and manage fields or just a save button. But we probably figured out that no one wants that other option, so let's just get rid of it. So never mind. I thought there was a pattern like that here.
I recall what you're talking about, Angie. I think it's like, I don't know if it was ever a core pattern. I feel like it came with field collection or inline entity form or something like that.
Yeah, maybe so.
I think if you have multi-valued field, an entity reference or something, then you get the add another button.
Yeah, that's not what I was thinking, but that's true. And I think that's called add another item or something like that.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, I think the media library is a completely new pattern in core where it's like you can kind of, like you're really branching to a different operation. If I recall correctly, save and add another, as Angie is mentioning, it was something like it would add the thing that you were just creating to the list and then give you another empty one. And this is quite a bit different from that.
Yeah,
So
because you don't actually get another media item.
No, it's more like save and add more or just save.
Yeah.
Kind of like the two. Or save and return or something like that. But yeah, it's the wording is tricky. String freeze, we don't need to have figured out till RC though. So I would be fine with this going in with something that made sort of sense and then we could refine it later. I agree that save and select and save and insert are not it because those do not help at all with understanding what the difference is. So if we change save and select to save and add more, that would probably be enough of a distinction. Save and insert is still weird, but I don't know, without writing a paragraph there, I'm not sure. Yes, and add more.
So it sounds like
I know.
So it sounds like there's general agreement here that this is probably follow-up material.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, getting the wording right is definitely follow-up material. I think giving an initial stab that doesn't use synonyms for the same word is good. So it'd be good if we could bite shed at least that much. Is anyone opposed to save and add more or save and insert?
Nope.
I think I preferred save and select. I
Yeah.
think save and add to selected would be more accurate, but it's too long.
Yeah, it is really long.
Well, what about save and select more?
Ooh, try that. I love how we're firebugging. This is so awesome. Real time mock-up.
And I have a really dumb question, and I'm sorry.
Sure.
How necessary is it to put save in the button? Is there a way to indicate that these are both saves? And then you just would have select more and insert?
I feel like it's, I mean, my knee-jerk reaction there, not as an expert, is that it's probably pretty necessary because, like, I just uploaded some stuff. How do I, you know, you want the reassurance it's going to go into your library.
But does it need to be in the button itself? Could you make that area blue and have the word save, and then button that says select more, and the second button says insert? Rather than having save and, is it necessary to have that within the button itself from a design perspective?
I don't really know how that would look.
So where should we
look?
So where should we put that you save it?
I'm just thinking that save is, I guess I'm thinking mathematically, and sort of, these are both save functions. So indicating that they're both save, and then one is select more and one is insert.
In other words, if I understand, you can kind of visualize this where it's like you have the word save and that's not a button, that's just normal text. And then you have two buttons next to that, one of which says select more and the other which says insert.
That's it in a nutshell. And I don't think you need and, but yeah, they're both save functions. It's just one is the save select more and one is save insert. And I just didn't know if that's possible. That's why I preface this with it's maybe a really stupid question, but it just, to me, every time I see these multi-word buttons, they always feel very clunky to me and feel very Drupalism. So we mentioned earlier about people outside of Drupal looking at language. To me, that's something I associate commonly with Drupal buttons, is putting in a lot of words.
I agree, but I think it's worst actually putting the main action outside the button itself.
Understood.
Yeah, and I think that's also maybe an accessibility challenge.
Exactly, that for sure. And also it's sorry, go ahead.
No, yeah, I was just wanted to say that the buttons have like special meaning for screen readers and stuff like that.
So WordPress calls their insert into post, which we try to avoid using that word post because it's presumptive. You're inserting into a post and not a product or some other thing. And I can't figure out what to call their add media button. It seems like they don't. I'm just flipping through a bunch of screenshots.
So insert is definitely a thing.
Insert seems to be the good word to use for put it in the content that you came from.
Yeah.
I really think we should punt on this, make a follow-up issue, and move on to something else to review because the meeting is more than half over.
Okay, yeah.
And I have a suggestion, but I'll save it.
Okay, cool.
I still have a question for this one, sorry. I keep feeling that I miss a go back button or option somewhere. So every time that I am in this screen, I have the feeling that I would like to go back and don't save this one that I want to, that I have right now here.
Yeah, so we have the remove button for that, but that might not be clear.
Yeah, I think it's not obvious enough. Anyway, it can be a follow-up also. It's just that I keep feeling that I'm trapped here in this screen, and or I close and I lose everything, or I can go back and select another one. Even I can save and select, but
I'm sorry. So I saw that feedback before that somebody requested a cancel button in there. So maybe we should add an issue to cancel various steps. of the media library. So
That's not a bad idea.
So this one could use a cancel button, but the same argument could be made here. So now the only way to go away from here is just to use the close button. Maybe this could also use a cancel.
Yeah, and also that will bring another problem, that is why you have the main action on the left and not on the right. But I think it's a pattern in most of the models, right?
Yes.
I tried to look for that and I didn't saw anything, but I've seen other models with that pattern, and I don't think that's it. I don't think that should be the good one, but I don't know why it's like that.
Okay, so we are going to have follow-ups to improve the text of the selected items, a follow-up to talk about the cancel button, and a follow-up to improve the wording of the save and select and save and insert.
Yeah.
Correct?
Yeah.
Cool. Then I think we obviously have more, but I'll stop for now, and we could talk about layout builder for now, I guess.
Let's head it over to layouts then. I think, Ben, you've had an issue.
Yep. So the issue is 2929783, review layout builder UI terminology. And so we get to discuss terminology a little more. The ticket was created a little over a year ago, and I think wisely it was put on hold for beta because the terms were not so poorly selected that they were going to make it a bad beta release. However, I think it's stable is approaching. It's a good time to revisit it, and something that I wanted people to keep in mind, in addition to the user and the developer experience, is the experience of someone writing documentation for Layout Builder. This partially comes from anecdotal experience where I had difficulty writing documentation for paragraphs because people would think I was referring to the element of language paragraph, or even more so for features where terms could be used interchangeably. And that's something I'm concerned about with Layout Builder. And I'm going to share my screen. I'll show you the 4 areas that are in discussion. And come on, screen. There you go. All right. So the first thing that we need terminology for that currently doesn't have an established term is just the entirety of this. So sections, blocks, and currently it seems like the de facto consensus is page layout, where it's within the thread, it's even being referred to as that, and there doesn't seem to be a lot of opposition. The next item similarly seems to largely have agreement, which is section. However, when we click on add section, we are still debating a term for what gets added to a section. Currently, these are called layouts. So even though this is technically a page layout, people may also, the term layout's getting used again. So there's potential confusion there. And then the other aspect of Layout Builder where the terminology is still in question is the individual pieces here. So they're currently called blocks. There was a strong favor for calling them components. And in these cases, there were compelling pros and cons for both blocks and components. And there are a couple other suggestions. In the issue, I attempted to summarize the conversation, which hopefully is of use and doesn't just make this longer. But I would be interested, particularly from people who have not been immersed in Layout Builder most of the hours of the work week, what they think about the various terms and any specific concerns that may arise from various terms that are being suggested.
Hey, Ben, I wonder if you could show them like how you, because if somebody hasn't seen Layout Builder at all and they're more familiar with panels, they might not know like how you add a section and you sort of stack sections.
Oh yeah, absolutely. So we do add section. Let's do a 2-column section, and you can choose widths. And so now this is the new section there, and then we can add another section, and we can do 3-column, add section, and then within a section it has columns, and that's where you can add blocks. So
Thanks.
a block has been added. That is a very good call. Thanks, Ted.
So the first thing I noticed is, can you only add columns in a section? Or is there also a possibility that a section could have columns and rows?
There is, but core doesn't provide that.
Okay, so using the word row, like it makes me think of how to build a table layout, for example.
Yeah, so technically another a theme or a module could provide like one, like when he was adding a section, and what we have there is like they're all single rows. Technically a theme or a module could provide like a 3-row thing right there, though we're kind of just, I guess that's not how we imagine it be used, but nothing's stopping somebody from doing it.
So could we maybe then use the table terminology of rows with columns, like in a table?
Yeah, I do think that could confusing though for themes that provide things that aren't single row things. Like if we say add a row, and then all of a sudden you open it up and something is 3 rows, it would be confusing. And we do provide an API for modules and themes to. And originally we provided stacked layouts that were multiple rows.
And it's still possible to add them in contrib, but the core defaults are column only, no stacks.
Okay.
One question I had is this terminology review created by testing this with users and finding that they found it confusing? Like, were there specific complaints brought up when actual real people tried to use this? They're like, I don't understand what this is, or where's the motivation for this coming from?
So let's see, that the initial concerns were reported by Tim, and it is not based on actual user feedback. Questions and concerns, I imagine, based on prior experience, but you are, I think, correct in suggesting that some empirical feedback is significantly more valuable than.
Well, it's more so that changing names of things is really hard, and it changes machine names, it breaks APIs, it does all the things. So I understand the desire to do it before we stabilize a module, but I guess I'd be more inclined to tackle this hill, and I feel like I commented this in the issue too, like a year ago, but I'd be more inclined to tackle this hill if it was like, yeah, we sat down with 5 content authors who can find their way around Squarespace and WordPress just fine, and they were lost. And the reason they were lost is because this word was called block, so we can't call it that anymore. Mm-hmm. That would be a much more compelling reason to change names of things than asking a bunch of like the foremost experts in Drupal to name things. So, yeah, like, you know what I mean?
Vantage point is not going to yield the best results.
Yeah. So like for me, yeah, section's kind of odd. I've also have asked that question, well, why is it not row? The reasoning being that sometimes it's not a row, sometimes it's multiple rows is a good reason to call it a section. I'm kind of ambivalent on component versus block. The nice thing about calling it block, though, is when you click add block, the list of things you get is a list of blocks. And they're also the same, I think, the same list of things you get if you're in the block UI.
You also get fields. So whatever entity you're doing a layout for, you're able to add fields. And so
yeah, okay. So that's the reason he chose a different word like component, because it includes things that you wouldn't necessarily find only in the block UI.
That's right. And then my thought, one of my suggestions was just referring to it with a capitalized layout block, because it still functions like a block, but there are small differences, and that would kind of split the difference of familiar vocabulary, but distinguishing it from people's pre-existing understanding of block, because especially for documentation, that's the part that is scaring me a little bit.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah. Another thing that can help with terminology reviews like this is going out and looking at similar page building tools. So like if Gutenberg and Squarespace and Wix and I don't know what else, but if they all agree on one particular terminology, or say the graphic design industry as a whole calls those things components, like component-based design, is a terminology. Like if that would map well, that could be another really compelling reason to do it. But I guess I'm dubious whether asking a bunch of Drupal experts their opinions is going to get us a good result here.
That's fair. I think one of the things that might be most useful in the context of this meeting is if any of the things currently on the table that do not have documented concerns that seem fairly significant, mentioning those, that's what I've found to have been the most helpful thing in the thread so far is people pointing out like massive caveats for suggested term that was otherwise accepted. So I guess the nay votes are probably more helpful than the pros, because I think you are very correct that it's going to be hard from our perspective to know what is going to make something easier to use for someone who's not immersed in it.
Yeah, I think I kind of trust you guys to figure that out. I know this has been used, like the design for Layout Builder originally was used on an Acquia client. And so it might be interesting to go back to them and see if they've had any troubles with the way it was designed or the words being used and that kind of stuff.
And then
yeah, I don't see anything in the suggested changes that it stands out to me as eek. The only thing would be like that word component means something outside of Drupal. So if we're going to use that, let's make sure we're matching what people expect that word to mean and not making a Drupalistic definition of that word component,
Mm-hmm.
Where in our CMS, it means blocks and fields, but in every other CMS, it means a HTML widget. It's like not the same thing at all. Let's not do that. So, but yeah.
I just looked at Gutenberg and Squarespace, and they seem to take the approach that everything is a block. So even the sections are blocks, and you can add a layout block in a section which only provides columns, and in that layout block you can add more blocks in each column, which is super confusing to me. So I'm not really sure if we can draw inspiration from there. Because
that was a suggestion though of Roy Schulten, who is like one of the UX people, was to just eliminate words that we need to define. Because if everything was a block within a block within a block, you only need one word, and then and teach people the concept of nesting, and then that's it. But that's not how it works, right? Like you have to have these distinct different things. You can't do like sub layouts or that kind of stuff.
You can't, yeah. So if you had a section, then you can't add more sections within there. If you add what we're calling a section, you can't then add, you're not free to, yeah, you're not free to add at every level whatever you want.
But that's the upside to just having everything as one thing is people just learn one concept, and the fact that you can nest things and then they're done. Like then they just can figure it out from there. This is a little bit more complex for people to wrap their heads around because they need to we're surfacing some of these differences kind of to the user level. But ideally they wouldn't need to know all of the underpinnings that, you know, they would just need to know the parts that they need to interact with, which is the section concept and the add a thing to the section concept. And then what the developers call everything else is kind of up to the developers. But anyway, I'll let some people bike shed here.
Well, if nothing else comes to mind, that's fine. And if anything is sparked in anyone, I'd love to get more feedback in the ticket. And I think it was helpful to get the reminder that real world feedback can be particularly helpful in situations like this. So thank you.
Yeah. Benji, you're spouting off in the sidebar. Did you want to say anything on the alcohol?
Oh, just Adam and I were throwing out some ideas like Area 51 as possible names, but nothing particularly.
And I was the most serious about that one.
I don't think either of us came up with something particularly grabby.
I mean, I like what Angie said about like sort of teaching people one concept as opposed to overloading them with terms. And I know that comes from Roy, and that for me was like a light bulb going off in my head because I was just like, that's kind of it, isn't it? It's like Drupal has to exposes these things where it's like, well, everything is named differently because it has a different function, but that's not, you know, we're thinking about it that way because we're engineers, but you know, that's not necessarily helpful in the real world. That said, I have no ideas. I just thought that was interesting.
Yeah, that wasn't my thought. That was Roy's thought. Who's much smarter at this stuff than me.
Good
like
thought.
It's been a while since I looked at this issue. I'm like, oh yeah, I remember this issue. We talked about this like a year ago or something. I don't remember when it was. It was a while back. Yeah, if you have non-technical people in your life, you or anyone else on the team, try running it past them and see what they say. It'd be interesting. It doesn't have to like be data that informs this decision, but it might just be interesting to just like, what does this word mean to you? You know, what would you expect to happen if you clicked here? Like that kind of thing. And just see what people say.
I think something else I may try based on this feedback is looking up existing articles or videos on Layout Builder and seeing what terminology people are using to refer to things that may not have official names at the time they were writing it.
And to see maybe they don't find it confusing. I don't know.
That's also, yeah, that's a good point.
I mean, if we see a bunch of articles like having to clarify when they refer to something like, don't be confused with X, we're talking about Z right now, that might be a bad sign. But if we don't see like a lot of, if the articles don't have to really like keep specifying the terms or be very clear, it might be a better sign.
All right. Well, yeah, I'm happy with that.
All right. Is there something else from layouts that we should discuss in 3 minutes?
I could just show this issue. Obviously, we don't have long to talk about it, but there is an issue about granular permissions. Basically, I'll read the issue number as soon as I grab it. The issue number is 2914486. And I will share my screen real quick. The main issue is here right now. I'm just gonna, to be quick, this is a just close up of the permissions page. And right now, the highlighted permission is the only one we have. So you're able to configure any layout on the site, including the defaults and any overrides. But this will not give people the ability to say, I want to configure, I want to assign the permission to configure layouts, but only for articles. It also won't give you the ability if you, yeah, so it only gives you one global permission. So our current thought, or the current way in the patch, is to add 2 permissions per bundle for content, for bundles that have overrides enabled. So you can use the layout builder just like manage display, where site builders really are the ones who probably will use it. Or you can say that each individual item can have a override layout. And so I was looking at adding a permission, if that's enabled, say for articles, adding 2 permissions, one for you can configure the layout of any article, and the other one being you can configure the layout for any article that you can also edit. The wording is tricky, but I don't know if anybody had opinions on adding those permissions. I guess one of the tricky parts is if you allow the overrides everywhere that you allow the layout builder, then obviously it could get to be a large list. If you use the layout builder, say, for every content type, but only some have overrides, then the list would not be as big. It would not create, I was going to say, it wouldn't create as many probably as like the node module creates, because you're probably not going to, the node module, the permissions are generated no matter what. This, you have to have a particular setting on a content type for it to be generated. So if anybody had thoughts on that as far as the usability of the permissions.
What's the default? If I add a new content type, is it by default?
It's not on. It's the layout builder is not on at all by default.
And if I enable layout builder, is it by default overridable or not?
No, it's not.
Okay, thanks.
Yeah, so you'd have to, you can enable it for all your content types, but there's a second checkbox for each one for on the manage display to say I want to allow overrides. And the other thing is that at least in core right now, you can't do overrides on any view mode besides the default. So you can't have overrides on teasers or whatever. So what it looks like is this, where this one has both enabled layout builder, using layout builder and defaults. Once you have overrides, sorry, and overrides, once you have overrides, you can't turn them off if they're existing overrides. But this checkbox, the second checkbox, is what would create 2 permissions for every time, every different bundle you have this checked for. And I don't know if media had an issue where there were a bunch of permissions being created per bundle. I'm not sure.
We had an issue like that. I don't think it landed though.
Okay.
I know there's an issue which looks like it might get committed soon to have edit permissions for each block type.
Okay. Yeah. And I guess the other thing to keep in mind is, like, so for this permission, I'm saying, like, for content items of the content type article, because you can have the layout builder enabled for anything that currently like has managed display, it's probably be less likely for overrides for a lot of different things. But conceivably all of those things could have overrides. All right.
What does the for editable mean?
That's what I'm trying to figure out the wording for. Basically, what I'm trying to say is this is a permission that says if you can edit this article, then you can also edit the layout. And the reason I think that's going to be very useful is because a lot of people have sort of thought about using the layout builder, say, for landing pages, where you really don't have any fields you're displaying. You're just adding inline blocks and other different blocks to make landing pages. So if you could create the landing page but had no access to the layout, then that wouldn't be very effective. So tying for certain bundles, it seems to make a lot of sense to tie to say if you can edit this at all, then you can edit the layout.
Well, maybe instead of adding more and more permissions, and the number of permissions is already a problem.
Yeah.
Maybe that could be an option on content type configuration.
Yeah, I had that at first. The only reason I don't know if we're not do that anywhere else in core that I know where we tie permissions to something that's not on the permission page that I know of. I mean, maybe we do, but I haven't seen it.
We wouldn't call it a permission.
Yeah, but it affects somebody's permissions.
Yeah.
It affects what they can do. You're basically like expanding like the edit permission now also. I guess I thought of this permission similar to what we have for nodes, where it says you can edit any of the ones that you own, or you can see your own published, your own unpublished content. So we're tying the ownership of a node to whether you can edit it or not. And then we have that on the permissions page.
But here, the for editable seems to be like anything that's editable, which is probably everything. But
yeah,
it doesn't really say that you're only allowed to create layout overrides for the things you can personally edit.
For content types. Yeah.
But yeah, terminology is not my strongest thing. So
yeah, I was trying to figure out how to say that. Okay.
But I do like the fact that there are permissions for both.
All right. Well, it's just I wanted to see if anybody had strong opinions. So I'll go back and look. And definitely the way describing editable without having too many words is tough. But we're over time, so thanks for listening.
All right. Thanks, everyone. Thanks for coming and keep up the great work. See you next week.
See you next week. Bye.
Bye-bye.
Thanks.
Bye.
Bye.
Thanks.
Bye.
Everyone.